Alright, I thought I'd record going through separating this orange piece here because I've gone through it once and tried to separate everything, but when I run connected components, it isn't separated. So I was just going to show how I find the current state of the art for finding pieces, or the best method I found. So what I do is I move the plane and then hit a K to cut it, and hit R, and you can see in this part the sheets are separated. So then I'll use Shift A to move it out a bit, hit K again, and then hit R. You'll see these here now the sheets have the same label. So what I'll do is I take a pretty big erase slice width and hit C, and what that should do is it gives me a cut here. And then part of the reason why there's still connections is because you don't have enough context when you're going through with a smaller plane, but when you have a larger one, you can see more easily. Like here is still connected in other places, and I'll probably draw a picture of why it's happening, but essentially, if you look at this, let's see if I can illustrate it here actually. If you look at this big bulbous part here, and you can cut it, maybe on the other side, well, with a smaller one. You're going 20 here, and you cut C. You look at this, you're like, okay. You might think, oh, maybe this is part of this bottom sheet, so you erase. I'll just do it for the sake of argument. So you erase like here and here, and you think, oh, okay, now it's separated. And hit Q, and then you forget that you separated from the top sheet on this one, and you're like, okay, it's part of the top sheet here. And then as you come in through here, originally this part was connected over here as well, like there was a connection like this, and then you might think, okay, now it's part of the bottom sheet, so you go and erase, not that, but you go and erase it over here, and you're like, okay, now it's part of the bottom sheet because you only have this small context. You're like, oh, okay. So it looks like you would disconnect it through every slice, but in reality, it's moving from being connected to the bottom sheet to being connected to the top sheet through each slice. So when you run connected components on the whole thing, it's still connected. But if you then use a bigger erase slice width, and then hit C, right? Like you'll be able to, here it's pretty hard to see, but if that was connected to the bottom, you would be able to see it because you have all that context. So that's essentially why it can look like for each slice you've disconnected it, but in reality it's not disconnected. So we hit R to see the preview. This slice of C looks good, so then I'll go back to the K, cut it with K, hit R. Okay, they're connected, so maybe I'll move it in and just hit R. Still connected there, so we'll hit C for a big slice with C and see if we can find some parts to connect. Also, when you're using a larger slice, you lose a lot of the precision, but it forces you to be a bit more aggressive with the eraser, which helps to get the sheets apart. Obviously, they might not be as nicely erased apart, but that can be polished up a bit later. And at the end of the day, we need the sheets apart. Okay, so if I hit R, now this part should be good. So if I hit K, you get the whole thing, and hit R, yeah, now you see they're separated. So move it back out, hit K and R. So there's gonna be another one in here somewhere. Yeah, so I've found when you're using the K cut, it obviously has all of the context up to the other end. So it's a lot easier to find places where the connection might still be connected because of that, the lack of context with the slice. Because if you went back through it with 20 through every slice, it would look like it's completely disconnected at each part. Another thing you can do is change the erase slice width and go through it at a different width to try and get some of them, but you'll still miss some, especially if they're really wide ranging. Another thing is you might want to go from the other side occasionally if it has a bit of a clearer view. Depends on part, and then you can just, like here, it's pretty tight. Even here, I'm thinking 60 might be a bit much for this one. I just cut it 40. Okay, yeah, that's a bit clearer. You just try and see if, whoops, middle mouse button to move it. You hit R here, like they're disconnected, but let's go back to 60 because see if there's anything that's still connected. Was 60? No. Okay, so they're separate. So we'll hit K, hit R. They're different colors now. Move it out a bit more. Just so you know, the Shift A and Shift D moves it 20 units, so that can be helpful. So yeah, you see that was 40. They're still connected, so you can just skip back some more. And still disconnected, so they might be disconnected now if I try connect components. There you go. So that's the best way I've found, that once you've gone through it with the erase slice width at a smaller number like 20 and there's still connections, I just push the plane out with Shift A and D and do a K cut and then hit R and see if the sheet I'm targeting to disconnect is still together. And if I find where it's together again, I just take a larger erase slice width, hit C, and find the disconnections, and that seems to be the fastest way for sure. Because before I was going through with like slice 30 and going chunk by chunk, but I kept missing connections. This way, it seems to find them all faster. And I think this cube is now pretty much done. I'll have to reassign some of the labels that are disconnected, but are probably part of the same sheet. But like these ones, well, why don't I do it here as well? So if you think like this red part is actually part of that sheet, you can hit the color selector and click on the sheet you want to assign. It'll select that label, then you hit the flood fill, make sure the N edit dimension is 3, then you click on the part you want to assign it to. Like I'll assign yellow to this one here, and up here I think this sheet should be that color. I think this one should be that color, but you should also only reassign the labels right at the very end, because anytime you run connected components, it'll overwrite these. So yeah, okay, like that. And okay, this P, I'm not quite sure what this blue one is, so what I'll do is, well, I'll save the labels first, and then I'll look at it with the data slice to see if I can make sense of it. But besides that, it looks, there's like a light green. Yeah, there's a couple small weird parts, like that part. Probably just assign that the same label. Okay, so if we use Shift C, it'll come back to all the defaults of the plane. If you're in the other mode, you can just unhide the data plane as well, but I made a quick shortcut. So here we'll look on the x-axis and, oh, what did I, oh, show selected. Oh yeah, it's hiding this thing, which I don't need for this. So what we'll do is we'll use T to get more context. And then look, it looks like there's some odd cut almost somehow. So I do think that this blue one is the same as that label. So we'll select it and assign it. And yeah, it's a pretty dense cube. Oh, so red, a bit of blue. Assign that also. Oh, want the flood fill. There's a bit of blue in there too. I think it's probably part of this sheet. Yeah. But otherwise, I'm not quite sure what's going on with this light blue and this like minty kind of color. Maybe I'll have to, because here it looks like, oh, they're separate things. Like here it's clearly, oh, here's one sheet than the other, but here it looks like it comes down and maybe this light blue one fades away a bit. Yeah. But anyway, the major point of this video was once you've gone through trying to disconnect two sheets, you should use the K key, the Shift A, and the R to do the preview, and then hopefully that'll allow you to find where the connection still is, and then using a larger erase slice width, you should be able to find them. All right.